Hello, Unlocked community. I am so excited to be here. I hope that you're having a great day. I hope you're learning a lot. Transformations are happening. I'm so pumped about this event. I just want to say a quick thank you to Nina and Laura Georgine for having me, for sharing their community with me. I just feel like it's this huge honor to be able to talk to you guys today. So, thank you, ladies, for letting me be here. Okay, I have so much to share with you, but first, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Whitney Kroneberger. I'm a life coach for Christian female entrepreneurs. I help 6 and 7 figure women from all things from marriage to parenting to having hard conversations, all the things outside of their business that really take them away from showing up in their business the way they want to. And so I love what I get to do. And actually, as I was thinking about this event, I was putting together my script and I was really trying to think, okay, what do I need to start out with? And what does this actually look like? And I was really kind of thinking about, okay, I really want to start with a funny story and just get them kind of loosened up and all the things. And it took it like I really couldn't figure out one. And it was like God knew this and then just kind of created this perfect opportunity. And so I'm going to tell you a story that happened yesterday, actually. So I live in Colorado Springs with my family. I'll tell you about them in just a second. And we just had some neighbors move in, like right next door, right over here. And my kids have been outside. They love talking to people, strangers sometimes. And so they went over to our new neighbor's house and they were talking to him, introducing themselves and all things. It was great. Well, my husband got home from work and I was like, "Hey, I really think that we should probably go and introduce ourselves to our new neighbors." And he was like, "Yeah, you're right." So we walk over there. Okay. So honest truth, like I need to know, like show of hands, how many people know that urologists do more than just vasectomies? Like, yes. Okay. This is something that I know as well. But we walk over, we knew that our new neighbors were, that he was a doctor, the husband was a doctor. And so we're like, we know a little bit about him. So anyway, we walk over there, we're introducing ourselves, and he's asking us what we do. We tell him what we do. We ask what he does. He's like, I'm a urologist. And I was like, oh, hey, babe. And kind of do the like one of these to my husband. I was like, hey, you should just go ahead and book an appointment. And you could see this new neighbor that we just met. Like 10 seconds into this conversation, kind of like looks down for a second. And then I look over at my husband and he's kind of looking down for a second. And I was like, so we don't have any more kids. Like we can, we've been talking about this. And he's like, thanks, babe. Thanks for that. And you could tell that our new neighbor was like looking at us like, what is going on right now? Right. And it's one of those moments that you're like, "Oh, that's not what I meant. Oh, okay. I mean, because like," and he's like, "Hey, I got all these like sheds out here in the front. We can just do it right here," trying to make jokes back at me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like totally threw my husband under the bus. Having these moments of misunderstanding, I feel like just happens. It happens to me all the time, I'll tell you that. Okay. Like choosing a story, a funny, embarrassing story, that's like it's not hard to come by for me, okay? But here's the thing. Misunderstandings in our business also happen all the time. And not just like a miscommunication or like somebody just I just didn't communicate correctly, like being misunderstood is happens to female entrepreneurs all of the time, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about me. So, as I told you, I'm a life coach for Christian female entrepreneurs. I live in Colorado. I've got 3 kids. They're all involved in hockey. That's kind of become part of my identity at this point. I grew up in Colorado. I'm a native. My husband and I have been married for 15 years. He's a real estate investor. We're both entrepreneurs and love it. So I started out my career. I was working at a nonprofit for about 10 years in human resources in their talent acquisition department. And while I was there, I was working with the hiring managers and directors and C suite executives. And I was really pulling together and doing team building for them. So doing interviews, pre screens, background checks, all of those things, conducting the interviews, making the offers, and really helping them form the team that they wanted to move forward with. And so loved that job, but kind of felt this urge to move into entrepreneurship and own my own time. And so I started into the network marketing space. I did that for 4 years. 2 years into that journey, I was making 6 figures. I had doubled my salary from the nonprofit that I was working at. 6 figures, got the car, won the trips, loved it. And then as I moved through that journey in network marketing, there were a couple things that stood out to me. Things that I could identify that I really loved about what I did and things that I didn't love as much. And throughout that process and throughout the process of hiring, I realized I really loved coaching people. So after that chapter closed, I started my coaching business, and I've been doing that for a while now. And I absolutely love being able to identify the thoughts that women have that keep them from going big, from that keep them playing small. And so I get to do that every day and I love it. But truthfully, being in the network marketing industry is kind of signing up for endless amounts of misunderstandings and being constantly misunderstood. If you're in that industry, you might understand what I mean. But being a coach, being a therapist, people make assumptions about you all the time. And truthfully, we make assumptions about other people all the time as well, right? Like most of us have them inside our brains. Some people don't. And we call those like inside thoughts that came out, right? So we just want to keep a lot of those inside and keep them as inside thoughts. But it happens to us all the time. So I want to just kind of set the stage for you. I've worked with hundreds of successful female entrepreneurs doing one on one, doing group coaching. Most of them are making 6 and 7 figures. And I hear their thoughts. I see the behind the scenes every day. I see the ugly. I see the things that they don't want other people to see and hear the things that they may not want other people to hear. And I see the self-sabotage and I witness the breakdowns all the time. And it's actually something that I love about what I get to do, but let me just tell you this. The number one thing that I see right now taking out high achieving female entrepreneurs is this. They lack the willingness to be misunderstood. So I watched just in this last week, like just over this last bit of time, I've watched 4 women talk about walking away from social media altogether because of their mental health. They're saying like, it is because of I'm using quotations because this is their words. One of those women had 1.3 million followers on TikTok and gets hundreds and thousands of views on social media all the time. Here's what she wrote. Here's what she actually like talked about in her video. I need a break from the space. So I'll be focusing on elsewhere for my mental health. And mental health. This work is too important for me to continue feeling unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. And here's the deal. I've been there. I have literally felt the physical response from opening a text message from the person who is spreading rumors or read the comments of somebody who didn't agree with the video that I made or how I said something specifically. But it's not really just about like the internet trolls and the people that we don't even know, like just the people that are out there on the internet. It also can come from people that we love and trust. And it's not just emotional pain that we feel, it's actually physical pain as well. But what if? What if this actually wasn't a problem? What if we were able to manage our minds and we didn't allow this to take us out of the game? What if we were able to experience being misunderstood and we sat with that emotion, but it didn't really take us out of being present with our kids at the zoo, especially as we're talking about being present with our families over the summer? This is something that I think is could be the number one thing that keeps us from being fully present with our families. It's not long hours. It may not even be anxiety. It's spending time in our brains thinking about being misunderstood. So here's the deal. I want to give you a message of hope today. I'm going to give you tangible things that you can walk away with and implement today, but Here's what I want you to ultimately walk away with. I've labeled this talk the courage to be misunderstood because I believe the courage to be misunderstood often comes as a result of digging deep in order to understand the essence of your identity. It's choosing to become unoffendable, and it's carefully cultivating your inner circle. It's also giving them permission to gently correct when needed. See, I'm a learner. Okay. So I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things to do is closely watch how people operate. And if I'm lucky, kind of like what their behind the scenes process looks like. So here's how this looks for me. I take a lot of notes. Okay. A lot of them are mental notes, but I, I, I keep track of kind of the way that they treat their people. I like to know how they communicate. How many emails do they send? What routines do they have? How they acted in the green room when they have an event. When I was working with the C-suite executives, I watched how they spoke about their teams, how they made decisions, like what their decision-making process looked like. I was even privy to how they make their decisions when they were bringing on new staff and what they were looking for. And I've also seen the underbelly of the network marketing space and direct sales and coached hundreds of women in those space. And I've heard the stories and seen how they dealt with this kind of thing too. And here's what I found. This is like how it kind of actually plays out. And this might happen to you too. So a message comes along or a comment rolls in or an email is replied to with hateful language or they are criticizing you. And the first thing that we kind of do is this like emotional response that starts bubbling up. And it's like, oh, like, have you guys felt like this before? This ouch, or that's not me. Or wait, am I really like that? Or gosh, is that actually true about me? And then what happens is we start to question everything about ourselves, about who we are, what we've created. And it kind of throws us into this procrastination and it paralyzes us. And then usually what happens is we start taking things offensively, right? Or things get really personal. Or maybe we're even quick to react. And it could even be like a public reaction. It could be like responding to a comment immediately. That's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. You've totally misunderstood me. Or I've seen this happen too. They just burn it all down. Like I've seen big time coaches that have created these amazing programs and someone has said something negative or has criticized their program and they just shut it down. They don't even interact, they don't engage, they don't ask for more feedback, nothing like they just burn it all down. But what happens is we waste precious mental real estate spinning out and spiraling. But here's the deal, wasting time and energy also means not being present with our family. And we may actually be physically present, and you're saying, like, wait, no, I'm there, like, I'm with them. But we're short tempered, or we can't necessarily like clock out of our mind. We may not be sitting at our computer, but we're not clocked out yet in our brain. What could also happen is we start to isolate, and then we end up losing those moments with our kids. So, why is this a problem? You may be thinking, like, I don't know, doesn't seem like a big deal, but let me tell you why. When we make it about us and we make it mean something about us, or we take it personally, we end up getting distracted and we run off course. Because the truth is, the more you scale, the more you grow, the more exposure and the more opinions, the more scrutiny, the more you'll be misunderstood. It's kind of part of the game, right? And if we leave this unchecked, this actually, like we kind of develop this fortress around us and we start to isolate and we kind of pull back and we go in and we start playing small and we stop dreaming because it's costly. Being big and going big is costly. So, why you might be asking yourself, why did you say the courage to be misunderstood? What does courage actually mean? So, courage means strength in the face of pain or grief. So this is why I say I help high achieving women like you develop the courage to be misunderstood, because developing courage takes practice. It's strength. It's building a muscle. It doesn't just show up. It's intentional, consistent, thoughtful work to get to the place where we actually develop the courage and willingness to be misunderstood. Okay. So what now? Like maybe you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, sure. Okay. So you've identified it. Yep, that's me. I get it. I've been there. Didn't even know this was a problem, but wow, yeah, that actually, I feel that. So here's what I want to give you today. Here's how I can help. When you waste time spiraling, I want to help you manage your mind and help you implement what I like to call anchor thoughts. So we're going to talk about that. When you're focused on this like specific comment, you literally begin subconsciously creating content to defend yourself and your position. And so what that looks like is you stop talking to your ideal client when you're creating copy and you start defending yourself. And I want to give you the tools so that you can continue talking and selling to your ideal client. Now, we we kind of talked about this earlier, but you may not actually be continuing to sit there and work at your computer, but your brain is not shutting off. Like you're going to bed at night and you're still running through all the things and overanalyzing what happened that day. And so I'm going to talk to you about a way to develop some mental boundaries and boundaries of the mind so you can seamlessly clock out. And I really want you to be totally present with Field Trip Fridays with your kids, okay? Here's why this is important. And I want you, if you hear nothing else, I want you to hear this today, okay? Your work is too precious. Your calling is too high. Your work is too important. And your message is too costly not to deliver. So I don't want you to waste all of that precious time and those moments and those important things in your life that you've worked so hard for because you aren't implementing these tools in order to develop the courage to be misunderstood. Okay? The work that you're doing is important. I hope you hear that today. So I want to tell you and give you just a little bit of a backstory. This has actually been really personal for me too. When I was in the network marketing space, I had someone that was on my team that I constantly felt misunderstood by. She would tell me things, and they would prick a specific part in my heart because they were already things that I was struggling with and things I was questioning about myself. And then she would say them out loud, and it just confirmed the evidence that was already in my brain. So things like, you're not a good leader. You don't work hard enough. You're not going to be successful at this. She would say things like, I've made you who you are. You don't know how to work a business like this. And I used to spiral and I used to go into dark holes and I would just start questioning my worth. I would start questioning who I was. I would feel physical responses anytime I would see texts or messages. And initially, it just put me into this really small hole where I became ashamed to talk to my friends about it because they were tired of me talking about it. They were like, why don't you just not talk to her anymore? I was like, I can't. I was questioning too much about who I was. And I really, like, it made me feel crazy because I couldn't figure out, is what she's saying true or not true? And how do I know? Because she's one of the closest people to me. And so what I began to do was check in with the people that I trusted the most, including my husband, and start asking, like, is this true about me? And so what I have developed, and seeing my clients do this as well over the last 5 years of being a coach, is this 5-step process to develop this muscle. And I'm going to give it to you right now. So you can grab a pen and paper if you want. I developed a workbook for you. It's a free download, so you can go and write in there as well. But I'm going to give you 5 practical things that you can do today to develop that courage. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to identify what the root cause is. When you have that feeling of being misunderstood, the first thing I want you to do is just figure out what the root is. Because here's the deal, like, I love a good affirmation thought as much as the next life coach, truthfully. Okay. But I will guarantee you that that affirmation is not going to stick, and it's not going to be helpful unless you can really come to terms with why you're feeling that way. Okay. So I want you to sit with some of these questions. Okay. I want you to ask yourself, why? Why am I feeling this way? Where is this actually coming from? Then continue this pattern 5 more times. Where is this coming from? And then ask why. Why am I feeling this way? Okay. And then ask yourself why again. So, this is going to give you so much more context and data to analyze. It's going to give you a lot more clarity into your own brain and where you're actually at. That's step 1. Okay. Before you react, before you freak out, before you respond, I want you to go internal and figure out why. Like, why am I feeling this way? Here's a second thing. I call these anchor thoughts because I see a lot of coaches that talk about intentional or unintentional or bad thoughts or good thoughts or all these things. And what I like to focus on is, what are the thoughts that are actually going to stick? So, where's this actually coming from? But anchor thoughts are the thoughts that you're consciously choosing to serve as a bridge to get you from unproductive to productive. Okay. So they're the thoughts that you're currently having. But when you think about the thoughts that you want to have, these are the thoughts that are going to carry you to that place. It's the thoughts that you can hold on to in the midst of what might be a storm in your life. So when you've nailed those down, then you can decide on this bridge thought or the in between thought. And that thought is going to serve as your anchor thought. And I talk more about this in my workbook too, so you can dive deeper into that. Okay, the third thing, this one kind of might hurt. I need you to just brace yourself just a little bit, okay? We're going to talk about becoming unoffendable. See, taking offense ultimately actually comes from kind of a selfish motive. So stay with me in it. You can do this. I promise you can. When someone says something about you that you believe isn't true or you get offended, it actually has nothing to do with the person that said it, and more belief about you and yourself. That's what like culture likes to call that a trigger today, right? The root of the offense actually sounds more like this. How could you say that about me? Do you know who I am? How dare you say something like that to me? Without even thinking about it. This is kind of subconscious, okay? Being offended is like creating a story in your mind and assuming that you fully understand the meaning behind someone's comments. And this gets us into a lot of trouble. So, what I want you to do is, when you initially take offense, I want you to ask yourself, is that because I believe it about me? Or is it because it triggered something in me? And why do I feel like I'm getting offended? So, do you see this pattern of like taking a breath and asking ourselves some deeper questions first? Okay. Here's the number 4. We got 2 more. You guys are doing great, okay? I want you to be mission focused. So when you feel misunderstood, it's easy to change your behavior or your content or your message in order to defend yourself and your position. So you start talking to your worst client, like we talked about earlier, and your message kind of becomes negative and confrontational. And your people subconsciously will feel this. So I want you to go back to the drawing board. I want you to remember why you're doing what you're doing. I want you to revisit why you're serving the people you're serving. What is their problem? How are you uniquely set up to serve them? What's the result when they work with you? Go back to your why. Like, why are you doing this? That way you can show up confidently and less likely to talk to the haters, okay? And here's like the most important thing. I want you to cultivate your inner circle. So here's what I mean. Most people never do this part. And this is important because learning how to handle criticism with grace is an art, okay? It doesn't happen naturally. And when you develop this skill, it's what is going to set you apart. But there is a way to do this really, really well. So your job is to carefully cultivate your inner circle. And here's the kicker. You got to give them permission to speak truth into you and tell you the truth. And here's why. When you're intentional with those that you surround yourself with, it's easier to give them permission to hold you accountable. And that helps you become the best version of yourself. So they're going to remind you of truth, of who you are and what your identity is. And so when the scrutiny comes from outsiders, you have your inner circle to go back to. And you're going to check in with them and they're going to remind you of truth. And it's going to go in this circle all the time. You're going to do the same to them. And here's the last thing, and this is going to be hard too. I encourage you to refrain from going around and telling your side of the story when you feel misunderstood. The truth eventually comes out, okay? But here's the deal. Confidence is in style, okay? Don't brand yourself as someone who needs to correct the narrative to make yourself feel better. Okay, so I hope those were helpful for you. What I want you to do is remember that this is a process and remember that courage takes practice. And I just want to leave you with this that you were placed on this earth and what you were born with is your purpose. Like the skills and abilities, the things that you were born with, like that is your purpose in life, how you show up. But what you're doing in this season is your assignment. And this work is important. And what you're doing and selling and helping and serving is crucial. And the higher up the flagpole you go, the more you're exposed, right? And so I want you to take these things into consideration and allow these things to not let those kinds of misunderstandings take you out of the game. Okay? I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're doing a great job. And I want you to stay in the game as long as possible. Okay, that's it. That's what I got for you. I love you guys. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you soon.